every consulate has their own different process, and you go to the U.S. consulate website, they have their requirements, they have certain tabs that you have to complete, certain requirements on how they want the application to go through. But in general, is you either schedule the appointment right away and then you submit the application for review, or you submit the application for review, and when that's approved, then you're invited to schedule an appointment. And they will take a look at the initial application, and if they believe that you are sort of a prima facie case of being eligible, then they'll ask you to come in for an interview at the consular post. The timing on this can vary. Yesterday, I had a client who's doing a restaurant in the Boston area, schedule an appointment in Paris for a new E-2 business. He was able to schedule it for mid-March. So that's not too far out. In London, I'm seeing it being around 2 to 3 months. In Buenos Aires, similar, maybe a little bit shorter. In Germany, 3 to 4 months. In Canada, we're seeing around 6 months or so for new registration. That was much longer before.
It was like 9 months.
Yeah, or even longer in the height of the pandemic, when they were sort of minimizing how many people they wanted to, coming into the actual consulate. Those have started to come down. There have been some consulates who have sort of refused to do E-2 visa adjudications, like in Barbados, and I think in Bogota for a little bit of time, but we're starting.
Barbados is finally starting to get approvals out of there.
Yeah, I think but we're starting to see some changes
like 2.5
there.
years later, they're open back up.
Exactly. So, like I said at the beginning, these things are not static. They do change. Every month, the Department of State posts their non-immigrant visa statistics. And some of the more, I guess, active E-2 processing consulates are in Seoul in South Korea. In Mexico City is very popular. Paris, as I mentioned before, Toronto is where they do the new Canada registrations. Those are really popular. Are you seeing any certain areas, Patrick, where you've seen a big pickup in processing at all, other than Barbados, what you mentioned?
Colombia was also frozen, like basically since COVID. Like the consulates, like pretty much across the world, shut down for E-2 visas, like anywhere from 6 months to 2.5 years. Yeah. That's what we've seen. And then like slowly they've been processing them. But a lot of our clients are dual nationals. So they see where they're residing. And then maybe the spouse also has a different passport. And it's like that then opens up 3 options of where they could potentially apply. And they just go with what the fastest option is. Obviously, there's different strategies there, and it's not just the fastest option where Joey's going to obviously come into play. We usually, how I see it, like if there's a will, there's a way. And you had mentioned the change of status option in the US, where we had over the years many Turkish clients that will just do a change of status, do premium processing, switch to E-2 visa, 2 weeks. They have the E-2 visa status, and they were going to go back home for the summer anyways. And that's what a lot of our European, Latin American, Asian clients do. They're here for the kids' calendar year. They have somewhat of flexibility, and they spend time, both the investor and the spouse, or just the spouse or investor, and they go back home and get the E-2 visa. And so there's a lot of different options, and I think it just depends on when the investor's timeline is, and usually it's driven by the school calendar, and it's right. Like every August they want to be able to move here, say June, so there's a 2-month buffer to get their kids in school.
Right. So you just mentioned a few different things that I kind of want to break down. First, let's talk about, and it's on the bottom of this slide, third country national processing. The Department of State has said, hey, if the processing in your home country is too long for you, then go ahead and try to apply at a different consulate. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, which I think as a general sense is true, but really it's up to that consulate's discretion as to whether they'll accept you for an interview. And I think what you were alluding to is they want to see that you're either a passport holder of that country or have some sort of
Some
residency,
nexus, right?
some nexus
I think
to that
pre-COVID it
country.
was fine. Like we had clients applying in Canada or applying in
In
a
Mexico.
Swedish client that applied in Madrid. Sweden was taking like 6 months and Madrid was a month. So working with his immigration attorney, they applied in Madrid. He got the E-2 visa. But it seems like they're not that open these
I,
days in 2023.
yeah, it seems like it's gotten a little bit more restrictive, though there isn't anything stopping anybody from trying. It's sort of about their willingness to travel and potentially, willingness to delay if you're trying to go into consulate X before trying to go to consulate Y. But that is an option as a way to get in front of a consulate officer a little bit quicker. You also mentioned change of status. So this gets to the point that we were talking about earlier about the difference between a visa and status, immigration status in the United States. It is possible if you come in on let's say a tourist visa because you want to go to Disneyland, or you're coming in and you're putting your kid to school and they're here on an F1 visa and you're accompanying them with your visitor visa, and you decide, you know what? I want to do the franchise now. You can file with USCIS for a change of status application. And you can do that with premium processing and get a decision within 15 calendar days. That gets around the requirement of applying for an E-2 visa at a consulate abroad. The big, I would say, downside of this is that you don't have the ability to leave the United States and then re-enter to work for that company. You would have to apply for a visa to re-enter. But for a short-term type of thing, it's an option. And if you want to just continue to be here and do extension of statuses and your business continues to be viable, then hey, that might be a way to get here quicker. We have definitely done that. In particular, during COVID, I think extension of status and change of status applications for E-2s with USCIS went way up because of what Patrick was saying. The consulates were just closed.
We had a bunch of Canadians that were just snowbirds kind of like stuck here. They just changed status to E-2. And it made sense. Like took them some time to find the business and it wasn't their original intent, but they decided they wanted to do business in the United States and the E-2 visa status made sense. And I think it's just Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, that you could do visa-free travel into the United States and switch, but ESTA, like if you're an Italian passport holder, I couldn't just come here and then switch to the E-2 visa status.
Right. ESTA, there are different rules around that as opposed to coming in on an actual visitor visa. Yeah. In my opinion, when you're looking at, hey, how am I going to get my case processed the quickest? The last thing that you want is to be put in administrative processing, which is a black hole, and it can be difficult to get out of that. And so that's why I think the first bullet is the most important, no matter where you're applying. You want to have an approvable case. You want to have a business that is already operational, that already has US workers on payroll. And you can say that your money is irrevocably committed and it is a real and operating enterprise. Those to me are the best cases. And that's what I always advise my clients on, is you want to put your best foot forward and make it easy for the consulate to approve your case and issue you and your family the visas.
Administrative processing, it seems like kind of like getting waitlisted at university, where your
Right,
your chances of like making it in once you're on the wait list, it's like an easy way to basically say no, but we're not going to give a hard no right away for different reasons.
right.
I haven't heard of many cases where they're able to get the E-2 visa successfully, at least not having to put together a whole new case to then get approved.
And there are different levels of administrative processing. Maybe sometimes they just need, one more birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
And because you didn't submit that in the initial application. Okay, that's a relatively simple thing. It may delay it for a few weeks or maybe a month or two, but that's different than, hey, you know what? I just don't believe in this business plan. Or, maybe there's a past immigration violation that you didn't disclose or something like that, that would cause them to take a closer look at your case and not approve it at the time of the interview. One thing that we also see relate to expedite requests, and this is actually how we were able to get our client who applied in Lagos, Nigeria,
That's right.
a
Because the
faster.
business was operating and he really needed to be there.
He really needed to be there. And he already had US workers who were on payroll. And the argument that we made was, look, without his actual physical presence here in the United States, these folks could lose their jobs. And that is
and I saw it firsthand, like opening up a second bank account, getting the payroll provider to understand, like it's just much easier if you're actually here on the ground and much more credible.
And so we were able to get that case expedited, and he got an appointment, I would say, within a few weeks of submitting the case. Whereas normally I think it's around 6 to 8 months or so at that consulate.
Exactly.
So there are ways to do it. They want to see, possibility of a severe financial loss to the US enterprise, or potentially if there's some sort of urgent humanitarian reason. Medical issues are always very important. Those are individualized, case-specific considerations that you would discuss with your immigration attorney. But there are ways to try to expedite. Of course, consulates probably receive lots of different expedite requests or emergency appointment requests. And so it's really critical to get yours to stand out and to put your best argument forward right away. And I think job loss for US workers is a very, very strong case with a strong reason for a consulate to expedite the review and potentially get your interview quicker.